today I'm going to show you how I make sourdough. Now, disclaimer right here at the beginning, because I am by no means an expert. I've been making it for a couple of years now, and I found my own process, my own way of doing it, and that is the second disclaimer. It is my way of doing it. There are so many different ways of mixing flour and water together to make sourdough. It's mad. It is 20 to 9 and I've only actually just woken up, which is really unheard of. So I'm feeling a little bit like disorientated. I need to feed my starter. So I'm going to show you how I do that. I keep my starter in the fridge because the cold stops the fermentation from continuing. If you don't have a starter yet, it's actually amazingly simple to make one. They do take a while to mature properly, but you can use it within a few weeks. Here is my starter. She's called Shakti, female Indian goddess of life, because she is life. She is really hungry at the moment. She needs feeding. Let me show you how. I always use wholemeal flour. You can feed with any flour. You could even feed with plain flour, not with bread flour. But I prefer always to feed with wholemeal. And this is tap water that has been boiled and left to cool. If you use water straight from the tap, it is absolutely full of chlorine and it will kill everything. So I just boil the kettle, leave it to cool, because boiling the water gets rid of the chlorine. So you can see this is the old starter. It's over fermented. It's started to go acidic. If I tried to use this, it would break the gluten bonds, the acid would, and it wouldn't make a very good bread. There is a yummy pancake that I make with this by mixing it with an egg and a little bit of baking soda, a little bit of salt, and that's it. And that makes it a yummy breakfast. Okay, there we go. We should leave about 10 grams. It's approximate. Now I am going to put this on the scales because I want to add 55 grams of water. 55. Then I'm going to add 55 grams of wholemeal flour. Almost there. And then I'm going to give that a good mix up. Ratio 5-5-1. So it really should be 50 grams of water, 50 grams of flour and 10 grams of starter. But there was probably a bit more than 10 grams of starter in there. And I like to have a little bit of starter left over to make the next batch. So that is why I do it this way, 55, 55, and then a guesstimate of around 10-ish grams of starter. And then I just put a bit of kitchen roll with an elastic band to hold it on over the top so that there's still airflow to it. That helps with the fermentation. Depending on the air temperature, I could just leave this now on the side in the kitchen and it would ferment. It would take a good few hours, but I don't have that much time. I want it to go quicker. The warmer temperatures are, the quicker fermentation goes. So I'm going to go put her in the airing cupboard for a couple of hours. Cozy her up there amongst the towels. All right, see you later, Shakti. Hopefully she should have doubled. That is the idea, more or less. This is the breakfast I was telling you about. It's a pancake made with the sourdough discard, what we call the discard. So easy to make and so delicious. Bobby, get away from my plate. All I do is I mix the discard with 1 egg, and with a tiny little bit of bicarb, just for extra like bubbliness, and a pinch of salt. Whisk them together, and then I have a pancake maker thing, grill thing. So I put it on there, but you could do it in a frying pan. And yeah, then when it's cooked, I mix mashed banana with olive oil and salt and put it in the middle. And it is so good. So good. One of my favourite breakfasts. And pretty good for you too, I think. It's just gone 12:30, so I'm going to check how Shakti, my starter, is doing. Ta-da! Can you see the difference? All those bubbles, and that is, I would say, around double. So she's good to go. We're good to make a loaf. We're good to make some dough. Let's go. Okay, folks, it's time. I'm going to show you how I make sourdough dough. Sourdough dough. This is my way of making it currently. It's a really simple way of making it. Let me just first say what goes into a loaf of sourdough. It's really simple. It is active starter, water. Make sure that it is not chlorinated water from the tap, or if it is from the tap, that you boil it so you get the chlorine out first. Flour. I use a mixture of wholemeal and white bread flour. And salt. That's it. That is it. You'll see so many different ways for adding these simple ingredients together. I have gone through times where I made an autolyse, where I mixed the flour and the water together and left them for a good half an hour to an hour before adding the starter, before adding the salt. I don't do any of that anymore. I feel like I really used to overcomplicate it, and it's actually really simple, really forgiving process. I use a glass bowl because I like to be able to see the fermentation happening. I am going to add 100 grams of wholemeal flour today. That's about on average what I do. So there we go, let's go. Now I'm going to make that up to 500 grams with white. So I use total of 500 grams of flour. This makes a really decent sized loaf. 500 grams. Now I'm going to add 350 grams of water. That is a 70% hydration. It's 500 grams of flour and 350 grams of water. So that is 70% hydration. I have done up to 80%, which makes a softer loaf, but it is far more difficult to control the dough. The wetter the dough, the more difficult it is to control. So 70%, even 65% is a good starting point when you're first starting to make sourdough. So here we go, 350 grams of water. I add 12 grams of salt. A lot of people add this later on in the process because they say it affects the fermentation. I find it makes zero difference whatsoever when you add the salt. So I just add it all now. Okay, now I'm going to add my starter. I'm going to add 100 grams for this 500 grams of flour. Look at that. It smells so good. 100 grams of starter. Whoop. I almost just tipped that everywhere. There we go. Okay, so that's just everything in together. You can just use your hands to mix this up, but I have this. It's called a Danish dough whisk. It's a bit of a mouthful. Danish dough whisk. Literally just mixing all of this together. You don't have to be too careful with it at this stage, you know. Later on, you want to be careful with the dough because you don't want to break the gluten bonds that are forming. But at this stage, we actually want to create a little bit of strength by really mixing it well. It's a good workout. Good strength building practice. Try to mix it up, do it a bit with my left hand as well. Balance it out. That's the yogi in me. Everything has to be balanced. Okay, that is good enough. I'm now going to leave that for a good hour or so. And then there are going to be some strengthening practices. It does sound like yoga, doesn't it? Strengthening practices. Strengthening methods to increase strength between the gluten bonds as it ferments. So you want to get like a good balance between strengthening those gluten bonds and also allowing that fermentation to develop in the dough. I'm going to cover it with a tea towel and leave it to do its thing. Oh, and with my starter, I'm just going to do, as I did earlier, I'm going to add 55 grams of water and 55 grams of wholemeal flour and then leave that to ferment again. The whole process just repeats itself. If you put it in the fridge, then cold temperatures stop the fermentation process. So if you're not intending on using it for a few days, you can put it in the fridge and then you can take it out when you're ready to use it. I have actually ended up leaving it way longer than I intended, way longer than an hour. I think it's 3:25 now. I can't even remember what time it was that I put it together. It's probably more like 3 hours. This happens all the time. I get distracted, I forget about it, and it never makes any difference, really. That's what it's looking like now. The gluten bonds are starting to form. I'm going to strengthen the dough with a technique called stretch and fold. I only generally do this once. No, that's not true. Sometimes I do it 2 or 3 times. It really does depend. I don't follow a tight process, you know, like it can vary a little bit. So I just get my fingers a little bit wet and then I just take the dough, get my fingers underneath, pull up and fold over. Keep on getting my hands wet. I turn it around, I pull up and fold over. Dead easy. Now, I'm not being particularly gentle with the dough, but I'm not being really rough either. You know, it is really forgiving, really. But as time goes on and the gluten bonds really start to form nicely, then you want to be careful not to tear them or break them too much, which is when we will use a different technique called a coil fold, which is gentler with the dough. So you'll see now that the dough has become smoother, and every time I pull it up, it is stretching less and less. And then I'm just going to turn that over. There we go. And I'm going to leave it again now, go off and do some other things, and come back to it. Okay, I'm back, and it's only about 40 minutes after I did that stretch and fold. It doesn't really matter too much. Sometimes I'll leave it 20 minutes, sometimes I'll leave it half an hour, sometimes I'll forget about it and it'll be a couple of hours. Really is very forgiving. I can't stress that enough. So now the gluten bonds are starting to form really nicely, and I want to start being more gentle with my dough so that I'm strengthening it while not tearing too many of those gluten bonds. So I'm going to do a gentler form of strengthening, which is called a coil fold. Fingers wet. Then I'm coming to my dough and I'm going to gently bring my fingers underneath the dough each side. And I'm going to pull up and coil that side under. I'm doing the same. I'm coming underneath the dough on both sides and pulling up
and just gently coiling the dough. I'm then going to turn it 90 degrees so that I'm coming into the dough from the other side. You can see how it's getting harder to stretch now already. And then finally, just tuck it under that side. And again, just make like a little ball out of it. You can see it is already starting to increase in size a little. And it's definitely holding together a lot better. So it's doing well, I think. I think it's doing well. So it's only had 2 strengthenings. It's had 1 stretch and fold, 1 coil fold. Now I'm going to leave it again, probably for around half an hour or so, and do another coil fold. I never do it exactly the same twice, ever. It's 5 o'clock. Time for another coil fold. Let's take a look at it, see how it's doing. It's looking good. As you can see, it is certainly starting to expand in size. You can see some nice fermentation bubbles there on the surface of the dough as well. Sorry, Itchy McScratchy is behind me. Bobby, Bobby, Bobby! So again, a coil fold. Gently lifting up, coiling underneath, turn 180 degrees, doing the same thing. So lifting this side up, coiling it under, being nice and gentle with it. There we go. And there we go. It's looking good. It's looking good. So now I'm going to leave it again for probably another half an hour. I might give it 1 more coil fold or another 1 or 2 coil folds. Not sure yet. Let's see what happens. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Oh, looking good. Again, you can see it is increasing in size. Let's just have a look from the side here. Look, you can see all those bubbles. There we go. I'm going to give another coil fold now and just see what it feels like. Ooh. So at this point, when you start to stretch it, it will stretch more, but it will quickly then start keeping its shape as you coil it a couple of times. So you can see now already, look, if I go to lift this up, stretching much less than it did just now. Just being nice and gentle. Okay, so I reckon I'm probably going to do that 1 more time, max. That's feeling really quite nice. So probably 1 more time, I would think, in around half an hour or so. It's 20 to 7, time for 1 last coil fold. And then I will just leave it completely for a good couple of hours, probably until around 8:30. I'll see how it's looking. It should kind of like double in size, more or less. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, look at that. Lots of nice bubbles on the surface of the dough. Oh, we're just gonna be nice and gentle with it. Oh yeah, look, that's feeling good. Nice. I like the feel of that. You get a feeling for dough. I think that's something you only build up with experience with doing. It's difficult to explain what it is that you're feeling for. So I'm just gonna leave that now, as I say, for another couple of hours. Before I go to bed, I will shape it and put it into a banneton, which is what gives it its loaf shape. And then I'll put it in the fridge overnight. I might go and have a bath. The final bit of the day, we're going to take the dough out of the bowl First time we're taking it out of the bowl since I mixed it all together. And we're going to shape it. And this is also the first time we're going to add some more flour as well. We're going to flour the surface to stop it from sticking. We're going to place it in this basket here. It's called a banneton. Some people just put it directly into the banneton itself. But you can use this little cloth. It just makes it a lot easier to turn out in the morning when we go to bake it. I mean, if you get your dough right, it shouldn't stick to the side, but quite often, you know, it does stick a little bit. Okay, so I just give the banneton a light sprinkling of, this is white bread flour, white strong flour. I'm just going to wet my fingers one more time to just kind of push the dough away from the outside of the bowl a little bit. I'm going to tip it out onto my floured surface. I always enjoy doing this. Just whoop. There we go. Okay, now this takes a little bit of getting used to, this shaping. Try to keep my fingers as floured as possible. I'm going to pick one end of the dough up, fold it over about halfway. And then I'm going to pick up the other side and I'm going to fold that back over. So I have like kind of a sausage shape. And now I'm going to roll this. Rolling that. I'm going to do a little bit of pre-banneton shaping now. I'm going to just close the end here. And then the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to take my banneton, I'm going to put that top side face down into the banneton. And now I can just finish doing any kind of shaping or suturing, closing. Where I rolled it up and those two bits met, they didn't quite close. So I'm just going to pinch that together. So I'm creating like a continuous floured seal around the dough. I'm going to put this in the fridge overnight to prove. You could leave this out air temperature for a couple of hours and then put it straight into the oven on the same day if you wanted to. I never really have done it that way. I've always just done it so I've got the dough ready for the evening and then I put it in the fridge overnight. Night guys, see you bright and early in the morning. Good morning. It is earlier today, 6:20, more like my normal time. Got the oven on, the animals are fed, the important thing. And it's time to get the sourdough in the oven. Let's take a look. Ooh, yeah, you can see it has grown a little bit more in the fridge overnight, only a little bit, and that's because of the cold temperatures. Really slows down, pretty much stops the fermentation. It's looking good. Let me show you how to put her in the oven, or how I do it at least, because again, there are different ways. So you can do an open bake where you just put the bread in the oven. You have to put a tray of water in the bottom initially to create steam to stop the crust
from forming too much too early and stopping it from expanding. But I don't do that. I use this tagine, which was very kindly given to me by Susie. Hello, Susie, if you're watching. I don't know if I'm going to still be able to use it in the oven in the camper. I think it's going to be too big, in which case I will use a Dutch oven like this. I also need some greaseproof paper, and this is called a lame. So it's basically a razor blade on a stick. I will put that to the side for a moment, and I put the greaseproof paper on top of the banneton, and then turn that upside down. Now this is where the cloth comes in handy. I'm going to take the actual banneton away from the cloth, and then in theory I should just be able to peel this cloth off really nicely. If it's over fermented or anything, then it sometimes gets a bit stuck. But it's looking good. Look how nice and easily that peels away. It's keeping its shape well. I'm happy with that, it's looking good. I'm gonna transfer this now into the tagine, and I'm gonna use the lame to score an ear. Ever so gently, put it in the tagine. Now this looks quite brutal. I'm going to cut it a big circle from side to side, and this is what's going to create that nice ear. I'm holding the lame kind of at like this angle, so it's not a cut straight down. Big semicircle. Cutting her open. All the way to a similar spot on this side. And then I'm just going to give it like an extra cut. Lots of people say you should only cut once, but again, I ignore that. Make sure that there's a nice cut all the way along. And then, mainly for prettiness, I make some little scores here like this, and they will look almost like a little ear of corn. The oven is up to temperature. Oven is at 210 degrees, by the way. It's a fan oven. A non-fan oven, I would put it at 230. And that is for 30 minutes. Alexa, 30 minutes.
Good morning, Sally. 30 minutes, starting now.
Time for coffee. Alexa, stop. The moment of truth. No matter how many times I bake a loaf of sourdough, this moment never gets any less exciting, because obviously you don't see the bread when it's in the tagine. What's happening? What's going on? While I'm here, I'm just going to turn the oven down to 190, 200 kind of. Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? She's looking pretty good. Got a nice ear going on here. It will raise a little bit more now in the oven when I put it back in again for 15 minutes at this slightly lower temperature. The crust will brown off. So let's just put her back in. Alexa, 15 minutes.
15 minutes, starting now.
Time to go and finish my coffee and wait for the last bit. And then it will be a case of leaving the loaf for a couple of hours. It's still actually cooking inside when you first take it out. So yeah, you have to wait. You have to wait. You have to be patient.
So I thought I'd film myself taking the loaf out of the oven, but I hadn't pressed record. Luckily, I took this shot afterwards of my beautiful loaf. Look at that nice round boule, a lovely ear, good colour on the crust. Now, just to wait a couple of hours before I can eat it. Time for a bit of yoga and to walk the dogs. Back from a lovely walk with the dogs. It is 20 to 11. I don't know where that time's gone already. So the loaf is nicely cooled and ready to eat. I'm gonna make myself a coffee and an egg sandwich. Time to cut this beauty. There we go. Now, I'm on a couple of Facebook groups, so a lot of people do crumb readings and all that kind of jazz. It's a good edible loaf, that is all I care about. So good. So good. A bit of a destroyed egg. Simple. That is an egg from the village, my own homemade sourdough. The sun is shining, I have coffee, I have a egg sandwich. Life is good. Oh God, it's moments like these. This is happiness. It really is the little things. So there you go. That is how I make my sourdough. I wanted to show you that it's really not difficult and it's a really exploratory process, particularly to begin with. Be prepared to have some failures and to learn a lot. There's something so connecting about making your own bread. It's awe-inspiring the way that you can take flour and water and make something so bloody tasty. So if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Please drop me a comment, I'd love to hear from you. Any questions you have, I'll try and answer them as best I can. As I've said a few times already, I am no expert. Take care, have a beautiful day wherever you are.